Chris Watts' public horoscope shows he has Scorpio rising. Chris's dream was to be a NASCAR mechanic, but he ended up being a service technician at a Ford dealership. He had a photographic memory and a 140 IQ. He and his father were close. They would go to sports events together, and his father taught him auto mechanics, which became an obsession in his life. Chris's first steady girlfriend was on the rebound of a messy divorce. After he helped her through that, she took off with another guy. At this point, his cousin suggested he do a friend request for Shanann on Facebook. It was declined. Shanann also comes up Scorpio rising. She was named after Shanann, a 60s rock group that sang 50s music. Shanann was a sickly child that constantly needed medical attention. Note her rulers are in the 12th. As a baby, she had migraines. She had to take strong pills and shots for it. She was described as insecure, did not have a good self-image, and was often bullied at school. Her father started his own self-improvement business, and her mother worked in a hair salon. When Shanann enrolled in high school drama class, it changed her life. It instilled confidence and gave her a new set of friends. She specialized in running things backstage, organizing props and scenery, ultimately becoming stage manager and production person. But Shanann was often absent from school because of medical problems she didn't want to disclose. In her senior year, she dated a fellow student, Leonard King. They had a whirlwind romance, married soon out of high school. He joined the Army as a means to pay for law school. She went to college but soon dropped out, getting a job selling pagers and cell phones so that she could support him through law school. After 5 years, they divorced. He used his lawyer college knowledge to give himself a good divorce settlement, leaving her bad off financially. 2 years later, she decided to build a house she could flip because she was tired of paying someone else's mortgage. On November 30th, 2009, she signed a $309,000 mortgage to build a luxurious brick mansion in the swanky suburb of Belmont, North Carolina. She came from a family of contractors. At 25, she supervised the building of a colossal 4,000 square foot, 12-room mansion, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and populated it with top-of-the-line furniture. Her younger brother estimated she was making around $500,000 a year. Right. And how long has he been on the planet? If she was making that much, why not buy a house outright, free and clear? So banks usually lend 3 times a borrower's annual salary. And I estimate she was probably making a little more than $100,000 a year, which is not too shabby for a 25-year-old. After it was finished, she started feeling ill. Her hair was falling out. She had lost 20 pounds in a month and went from a size 6 to a size 1. She was diagnosed with lupus and fibromyalgia and prescribed heavy medication that caused her weight to balloon to 170 pounds. She quit her job of 9 years and was at the lowest ebb of her life when Chris Watts sent her another friend request, and this time she accepted. Shanann was often in great discomfort and pain from the lupus, as well as the side effects from all her medication, but few people realized she was sick. She said she would paste on a fake smile and let people see what they wanted to see. Chris and Shanann were soon dating, and with Shanann's love at first sight Venus conjunct Uranus aspect, Chris was a goner. He was mesmerized in her presence and sometimes tripped over his words. But what did Shanann see in Chris?
And I got a friend request from Chris on Facebook, and I was like, oh, what the heck, I'm never going to meet him. Except, well, one thing led to another, and 8 years later, We have 2 kids. We live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me. And because of my health challenges, because I got so sick, I let him in. And he only knew me at that time. He knew me at my worst, and he accepted me. And, you know, through your vows, like through sickness and everything, he's been there. He was the one that let me lay on him and fall asleep for 3.5 hours on his lap while he had to pee. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me.
After 6 weeks of courting, he won her over. She went back to work because she still had that looming mortgage in the background. Chris moved in and shared expenses. He handed over $11,000 to Shanann he earned at the Ford dealership, which she tucked away for safekeeping. By December 2010, Shanann went public with Chris as her boyfriend, and they invited both sets of parents to a cookout. Chris's family was floored when they saw the house, and his mother couldn't figure out how Shanann could afford such a mansion. This led to suspicions and tensions between the sets of parents. Chris's family believed she was living beyond her means. One thing Chris's family did not like was his slavish demeanor to Shanann, who had a dominating personality and a fiery temper. Since Chris lacked a personality or displayed any emotion, they were a perfect fit. The couple got engaged in August the following year. When Shanann and Chris visited her friends in Colorado, her friends convinced her the fresh air and clean environment would be good for her lupus, and so they decided to move there. This was horrifying to Chris's parents, as he would be so far away from them. Cindy Watts, Chris's mother, said, "This was all Shanann's idea," and certainly didn't help relations with Shanann's future in-laws. At her engagement party Shanann and her mother organized, Jamie, Chris's sister, was told to order strictly gluten-free food, which did not happen, and Shanann wasn't able to eat any of it. Shanann also accused Jamie of not sending out all 80 invitations, which Jamie claimed was not true and that everybody showed. At the party, Cindy Watts accused Shanann of turning Chris against his family. After the party, at Shanann's instigation, Chris broke off all relations with his family. He stopped taking their calls and told them to leave him alone. Jamie tried to reach out to her brother to repair the relationship, but couldn't get a response. It is for this reason Chris's family did not attend the wedding. They were not invited. Chris moved to Colorado to find a job and get established, while Shanann stayed in North Carolina trying to sell the mansion. It was bought by an asset manager who said she was so desperate to sell that she left all the top-of-the-line furniture behind. It sold for $349.9K. She made $41,000, not including any closing costs. The property is now estimated to be worth $806,000 as of 2025. Shanann moved to Colorado to be with Chris and found a job at Longmont Ford, where Chris worked as a service technician. Having a gift for sales, she became their top salesperson, selling more cars than anyone else. Chris's manager noticed how Chris would hand over his paycheck envelope to Shanann every payday. He said Chris was passive and she was aggressive, bossy, always telling him what to do, dominating the relationship.
When Chris and Shanann both arrived in Colorado, they worked at the same car dealership together. After the case broke, the man who hired them spoke out to the media. He said he was very passive. She was very aggressive with him, bossy, do this, do that, telling him what to do, dominating the relationship. That I do know.
Not yet married, Chris signed a nearly $400,000 mortgage for a 4,200 square foot 5-bedroom house with a 9-foot ceiling in the basement and hardwood flooring throughout in a brand new development which was still being built. His monthly mortgage was $2,800 a month, with the deeds being registered in his name. Chris bought Shanann a $10,000 wedding ring, and she went about the business of wedding preparations. She would post a romantic picture of her and Chris daily on a website dedicated to their wedding. One friend said Chris worshipped the ground she walked on. He doted on her and did whatever she asked, and was happy to do so. People talked about his subservience to Shanann, but everybody agreed it worked. They were married November 3rd, 2012. They had a fairy tale wedding in which the bride wore a Cinderella wedding gown with a beaded corset bodice, a long veil, and a tiara. She wore rhinestone-encrusted high heels with "I do" engraved on them. Afterwards, they left for a short honeymoon at Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Their original plans were to go to Cancun, Mexico, but couldn't afford it. Chris's family got back into the mix when Shanann got pregnant, and everyone made peace. In the meantime, Shanann was going on a spending spree, buying a closet full of outfits, a top-of-the-line crib with a canopy over it, and Bella's name engraved on it, and they were running up credit card debt. Shanann went through a 16-and-a-half-hour delivery, and they started planning for a brother or sister for Bella. I don't have a fix on Bella's horoscope. She was obviously an introvert. The closest I come up is 12 a.m. with Virgo rising, but I don't stand by it. Shanann found Chris a job working as an oil field contractor, which paid him more money. In the meantime, Shanann had 3 gigs going, working at the call center of 2 separate children's hospitals, full and part-time, and doing direct sales for jewelry and instant coffee companies. At the end of the year, they leased a new Ford Explorer with payments of nearly $600 a month. That, along with their $2,800 mortgage, they were hemorrhaging in debt. Although he was difficult to talk to since he was so shy and introverted, Chris was liked by all he met because he was always willing to give a helping hand for anyone who needed it. If you needed someone to help you move or help with a car repair, Chris was there. Sun in the 7th. People with planets here can be quite popular. In January 2015, Shanann became pregnant again, and Chris obtained a job at Anadarko Petroleum as an operator, paying $61,500 a year. In June, Shanann and Chris filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They were in debt, comprising credit cards, medical bills, and student loans. Their combined income was $90,000, a drop from $147,000 the previous year. Mortgage and car payments ate up most of their $5,000 monthly take-home pay. There are YouTubers who claim because Shanann did MLM, that is, multi-level marketing, this could have had a lot to do with the bankruptcy, as she had been involved in 6 of them prior to this time. There are ex-MLM people who dedicate their YouTube channels to anti-MLM and recommend you stay away from it.
And as one former top distributor will tell you, if you are just accumulating product, that can lead to a problem common enough to have a special name.
We'd call it garage qualified. They would stack as much product as they can in their garage, and at some point they would realize that they have to quit.
So people buy product more than they can sell. It sits in a garage. What happens? There's got to be an endpoint here at some point.
When they run out of money, there's an endpoint.
Exactly.
Shanann started MLM with Amway back in 2008, and this may explain how she accrued enough money in 2 years' time to build a house. But somehow MLM rules may have changed because she had been steadily earning less. A month later, Celeste was born. I have more confidence on CeCe's chart. I get Leo rising. She was a sickly child, diagnosed with eosinophilic esophagitis, an allergic swallowing disorder. She had to be put on steroids to help her breathe for the first year of her life. A friend of Shanann's said she never seemed to get stressed out about the finances, but Chris was taken by surprise because Shanann handled all the money. Chris said bankruptcy was something I never thought was going to happen, and a lot of it was from the wedding because we just put it all on credit cards. There was $70,000 on credit card debt, including Macy's, Sears, Nordstrom, and Toys R Us. In January the following year, 2016, Shanann signed on selling Thrive supplements with yet another MLM company, Lavelle. It entails taking capsules, a drink mix, and wearing a patch. Before then, she said she was broke, holding down a $3,000 a month full-time job at a children's hospital call center and a part-time job. She was working 60 hours a week and was still a stay-at-home mom. She worked all night and took care of the kids during the day. Shanann got her husband and family on the Thrive program. She recruited more and more people to sell the supplements, even going as far as looking up old high school friends who hadn't heard from her in years. She asked Chris to go after his co-workers. The product worked miracles for her as she no longer needed her medication for lupus. Even Chris claimed he felt great, saying it gave him euphoric joy, energy, and mental clarity. She preached the wonders of the drug on Facebook and grew a following. She claimed, "I did 2 loads of laundry before 7. I had the kitchen rearranged. I was cleaning out cabinets, made homemade pancakes. I was literally dancing around the living room. I felt amazing. I had no headaches, no discomforts, and I really felt that feeling of bliss."
Black Label got me dancing in the kitchen while I'm cooking dinner.
Dancing in the kitchen? That my husband came downstairs at 5:30 in the morning and is like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I must be thriving."
Only 3 months into it, she had advanced to a 12K VIP to qualify for the VIP Auto Club, earning $800 a month toward leasing a new car. She chose a white Lexus. Shanann was constantly putting Chris on camera impromptu for her sales promotions. He went along with it because it was good for business, but his introverted self didn't like it. Chris said Shanann controlled all the money and didn't want to answer for what she spent. She paid the minimum on credit card statements and sometimes put a lot of money back into the MLM. She liked to shop, spending most of her check without paying on her obligations. In the meantime, both Bella and Celeste were constantly ill, frequently being taken in for medical treatment. Bella had to go to the hospital at 4 a.m. for an eye procedure for a blocked tear duct. Then she had to go to the dentist after busting her mouth. Later, she was admitted to Children's Hospital with pneumonia. Chris would take time off from work for his daughter's doctor appointments. In December, Celeste ate 2 small cashews and had an anaphylactic reaction. She threw up and broke out in hives. She was rushed to the hospital where she vomited 3 more times. Doctors gave her an EpiPen, Zofran, and prednisone and diagnosed her with a severe allergy to nuts. Later that month, Bella was rushed to the hospital for an ear infection. Celeste was throwing up. Both girls had been diagnosed with a croup infection of the upper airways, which blocks breathing and causes a loud barking cough. Shanann focused more on her personal life when selling on Facebook, always eternally grateful for having Chris as a husband and having a wonderful marriage. But neighbors could sometimes hear them screaming at each other late at night. Whenever they were in public, they were a loving couple. In July, Bella was admitted to Children's Hospital with trouble breathing and was diagnosed with viral pneumonitis and hypoxia. The next day, both girls were being treated with a nebulizer for asthma and viral pneumonitis. In 2017, Chris had lost weight and was getting in good shape from the Thrive patches and grueling exercise. In the meantime, Nikki Kessinger had been assigned to the Anadarko office where Chris worked. She would walk to the cafeteria to put her lunch in the fridge. She would always turn heads, and there would be locker room talk. Chris would awkwardly look up from his laptop, but they would never speak. Later, police records showed that on August 3, 2017, she searched the internet for Chris Watts. A month later, she Googled Shanann Watts. In mid-August 2017, Shanann went in for arthroplasty neck surgery to fix a degenerative disc that was causing migraines that had recently gotten bad. Doctors told her to stop taking Thrive. A friend came in to help her through the surgery and take care of the girls. Shanann confided she and Chris were struggling financially, especially since her spinal surgery would cost them $25,000 and put them in debt. In March 2018, they received a warning letter from Chase Bank for being 3 months behind in their mortgage payments. They were also 1 year in arrears on their $150 a month homeowners association dues and were being threatened with a lawsuit. So Shanann borrowed the maximum $10,000 off Chris's 401k plan. Later, Bella and Celeste underwent surgery to remove their adenoids. Shanann told friends she and Chris were trying for another baby, hoping for a boy. Chris lost so much weight, his wedding ring no longer fit, so he stopped wearing it. He had fallen out of love with Shanann and felt trapped in the marriage. He hated the way she criticized him in front of the girls, who started parroting her words back at him. One time a neighbor caught them having a raging argument in their driveway, but when they became aware they were being watched, they suddenly started talking more calmly, Chris even giving Shanann a hug. When Shanann told her parents she was pregnant, they were secretly concerned with all the problems they were having with Bella and Celeste and worried about their daughter's health. Chris's parents thought they must be doing well to have another baby. Chris was congratulated by all at work on baby number 3. Later, while working in an oil field, a coworker asked Chris how he felt about becoming a father again. Chris asked the man, whose wife recently suffered several miscarriages, if he would like another baby. After the Oops, We Did It Again video aired on Facebook, in which Shanann informs Chris she's pregnant, Chris and Nikki Kessinger had their first real conversation. He told her about his family and took out his cell phone to show pictures of them. He also said he and his wife were getting separated. After Chris dropped off Shanann and the kids at the Denver airport to visit her parents in North Carolina for 6 weeks, he made plans with Nikki Kessinger to meet at the nature preserve near her house. Chris told her Shanann was controlling and belittled him in front of their children, that she was all about appearances, and that she was bossy to him in front of her friends, but turned it into a joke. The one time he stood up for himself, she threw him out of the house for the night. He couldn't get back in to sleep in his bed, and he never confronted her again. He said Shanann often ignored him, preferring to talk on the phone or go on Facebook. They spent the night at Kessinger's house. Chris and Nikki had cars and drag racing in common and wanted to see a race together. something Shanann never had any interest in. At some point, Chris said he didn't even care if Shanann found out. He was never going to stop seeing Nikki. Nikki reciprocated the sentiments, indicating she was just as infatuated as he was. Chris woke up in Kessinger's bed to find Shanann had called 12 times. After he squelched that fire, he invited Nikki to his place to set up a new fitness app she told him about. In the living room, she saw a framed picture of Shanann holding Bella and Celeste. She told investigators that she told Chris, "My God, she's so beautiful, and your little girls are beautiful too." Why wouldn't he want to fix his marriage, as he seemed to have the perfect life? So now Nichol is turning into his priest, because that's what the other woman always says. Not, "I want you to divorce your wife." No, it's, "Why don't you two kids give it one more shot?" Chris took her downstairs to the basement, where there was a bed and exercise equipment comprising a bench press and weights. He had moved down there since his separation from Shanann, who had yet to learn of it. Nikki never saw Chris without his wearing at least 2 Thrive patches on his biceps, triceps, or lower back. He claimed it was responsible for his drastic weight loss. Chris spent the next 5 weeks at Kessinger's house, having sex and watching movies with her. Shanann's calls went mostly unanswered, and he was distracted during their nightly FaceTime sessions. He was in another world. At Chris Watts' parents' house in North Carolina, there was a big brouhaha over Nutgate, as it was called, when Shanann discovered Celeste was about to eat ice cream that might have contained nuts, of which she has a severe allergic reaction. Chris's parents had all the grandchildren over at their house. Before she came over with the kids, Shanann had warned his parents that no nuts could be anywhere in the house. She wanted a clean sweep of it. When Shanann found Celeste was about to eat the ice cream, she went ballistic. "You're trying to kill my child," she screamed at her mother-in-law, who insisted it was just plain vanilla. Shanann called for her father to pick them up immediately. She vented on Facebook that this was the last time the kids will step foot in their grandmother's house. The grandparents, upon receiving Shanann's angry posts, blocked her. Shanann insisted Chris confront his mother about putting their daughters at risk. Chris claimed he was going to talk to them and it just wasn't right, but he was evasive. He did not want to challenge his parents, and so he was now avoiding Shanann's calls and only communicating by text. Shanann texted, "You okay? It's like you don't want to talk." Chris replied, "I'm fine, baby. The last few days at work have put a lot of responsibility on me with new people. I didn't mean to seem short, boo. I love you to the moon and back." In the meantime, the young lovers, Chris and Nikki, were taking nude selfies of each other. Shanann also claims Cindy was teasing her children by allowing other kids to eat food in front of her children that they couldn't have. Cindy's response was, "This was a learning experience for the child to learn she can't always get what she wants." Shanann told Chris, "You should call your dad and tell him you did not appreciate your mom putting your daughter at risk today, nor do you like that she teased our girls." And the feud raged on. Shanann threw a birthday party for CeCe. Chris's father, Ronnie, had a whole slew of presents to give to CeCe. But when Shanann posted yet another Facebook attack that morning, Chris's parents decided not to go. Cindy Watts, Chris's mother, said she just pounded and pounded every day about the allergy thing. "I told Ronnie, you go if you want to. I just can't be around her family. I don't want something to be started on CeCe's birthday." Ronnie ended up sending the presents to Colorado, via UPS. After the party, Shanann was asked how it had gone. "Great," Shanann said. "In-laws, no show." "I'm sorry they no-showed." "Their loss, not mine. They are out of my kid's life now. I don't ever want to see them again." Chris and Nikki went to the Bandimere Speedway to watch drag racing. Chris was in heaven, as it was the first time he had been to the drag race since he was a young boy with his father. On July 24, Nikki Kessinger Googled, "Man I'm having affair with says he will leave his wife." She had hopes this affair would lead to marriage and searched online for wedding dresses. In the meantime, Shanann was growing tired of being put off. "I try to give you space, but while you are working and living the bachelor life, I'm carrying our third and fighting with our 2 kids daily and trying to work and make money." She said it was easy for him to text that he loved her and missed her, but if it was a lie, they needed to talk. Nikki suggested a camping trip, which delighted Chris. He had never been camping before and had always wanted to. Chris headed to North Carolina to be with his family on the remaining days of the 6-week vacation. 2 condos were rented at Myrtle Beach where they would stay. Chris wouldn't touch or sleep with Shanann. He seemed cold, distant, and distracted. He was constantly calling Nikki every chance he got away from them. Shanann continued blaming his parents for the way things were and that he was too weak to face up to them. Ronnie Watts, Chris's father, took a week off work so he and Cindy could join them at Myrtle Beach and watch the girls' first time at the beach. But Shanann wasn't having it. Chris was looking forward to spending time with his parents and was furious Shanann put a wall between them. By August 3rd, Shanann confronted Chris and begged him to talk about what was going on between them. He told her he was upset that his parents had been banned from coming to Myrtle Beach. Later that day, Chris invited his parents to see the kids at the beach. Shanann was livid. "Over my dead body? They don't get to disrespect me and him and his kids and get rewarded." Chris backed down immediately. That night, Chris defiantly called his parents, saying he wanted a separation. "She will not let me see you guys. She won't allow it, and she doesn't want you to have anything to do with Bella and Celeste." Later, Chris finally told Shanann he had had enough of her alienating him from his parents. A bitter argument ensued. Shanann wrote a long text to Chris, continuing to defend her position and saying her parents' home was no longer a safe zone for Bella and Celeste. "You can't let them tell you what you want." Chris caved and started apologizing. They were still texting each other even though they were staying in the same condo. Chris said, "I'm sorry for the way I've been acting. It's just been in my head and I haven't been right at all. I do not deserve to be treated the way you have. I have defended our daughter." Chris then thanked Shanann for protecting CeCe, adding his parents still wanted to be in their granddaughters' lives. "I'm not used to not having a relationship with my dad. I should have called him before it got to this point. I didn't, and that's my fault." Shanann demanded that his parents apologize for not attending Celeste's birthday party. She told him that they did not appreciate him the way she did. "No one ever protected you from your mom, and someone should have before me. I'm done with being the bad guy in all this, especially when I had more balls to stand up for you a long time ago with them." Shanann accused her in-laws of ruining everything, starting with Chris's proposal, the engagement party, and their wedding. She said she was sick of it, and Chris needed to toughen up and stand up for her and the girls. Her 2 rulers, Mars and Pluto, conjunct each other. Doesn't get much more bullying than that. In a conversation with Chris, Nikki complained they had no firsts together. Chris's first marriage was with Shanann. They bought their first house together. They had their first child together. Even though Nikki never wanted children before, she said she wanted to give Chris his first son. There were Google searches on how much oxycodone it would take to miscarry a child. Chris ground up tablets and put it in Shanann's Thrive protein shake. Several times that week, Shanann felt physically ill and didn't know why. She complained of chronic constipation, which is caused by opioids. Chris said he will take it to his grave on where he got the oxycodone, but there's speculation that Nikki and her contacts may have had something to do with that. Shanann told Chris to find a place when they get back because she's putting the house on the market. She was planning on moving out of Colorado as it was too expensive to live alone with 3 kids. Chris said nothing. He planned on filing for joint custody and getting a small 2-bedroom apartment with bunk beds for Bella and Celeste. He was optimistic about his future, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Chris told Shanann he did not want their new baby, even though it was his idea to have one. Shanann burst into tears. She asked him if he wanted her to abort it. He did. Chris told Nikki that the divorce would soon be finalized. They had talked to a realtor about selling their home, and he was looking for a new place to live. Nikki offered to help. A few hours later, she went public with their relationship, sending a photo of Chris to her best friend. When they got home that night, Shanann wanted sex, but was afraid of being rejected. Chris spurned her advances, and she bawled her eyes out for an hour. Then she woke him up and asked him who he was sleeping with. He denied everyone. Chris took Shanann for her ultrasound to find out the baby's sex. It was sealed in an envelope to be opened at the gender reveal party. But later that night, they had a big argument, and Shanann canceled the party. The next day, Shanann texted Chris she still wanted to repair their marriage, trying to get him to tell her what caused his sudden change. She asked him if he wanted to go with her tonight to find out the gender of the baby, and he said he did. Chris deleted his Facebook account. Around noon, he sent Shanann a bizarre photograph of one of the girls' dolls lying on their sofa with a sheet covering it like a burial shroud. Shanann posted it on Facebook. I don't know what to think about this. That night, Shanann and Chris had their own private gender reveal party that she posted on Facebook. She was upbeat and positive for the first time in weeks. Chris had now agreed to work things out. He told her he loved her back and even kissed her before going to sleep in the basement. Afterwards, Chris and Nikki exchanged the latest batch of nude selfies to each other. On Friday, Shanann's colleague, Nichol Atkinson, picked Shanann up to take her to the Denver airport for promoter training weekend in Scottsdale, Arizona. Shanann texted Chris, "Thank you for everything last night. I miss and love you so much. I am still in shock we are having a little boy. Thank you for letting me hold you this morning. It felt good. Your letter is on the counter." Instead of reading the letter, Chris called up Nikki to set up a Saturday night date. During the flight, Shanann read the Hold Me Tight ebook. Chris would be getting his copy tomorrow. Around lunchtime, Shanann received confirmation from Amazon that the Hold Me Tight book had been delivered. She texted Chris to check his mail, which he did, throwing the unopened package straight into the garbage dumpster. Later that day, through a coworker, Chris became aware of a leak on a bypass line on an oil well, but it could wait until Monday to be fixed. He immediately volunteered to repair it first thing Monday morning. There are some theories that this is what launched the timing of his family's demise. On their date over a salmon dinner, Nikki told Chris she found several apartments in his price range. Chris picked up the check and used a credit card that was linked to his joint account with Shanann, knowing she would become aware of this charge. He used to use a work credit card to hide his expenses from Shanann to pursue Nikki. Shanann received an alert from her bank that their credit card had been used. Checking her bank statement, she noticed Chris had spent $68 on his dinner at the Lazy Dog restaurant, which she thought was rather high for just one person. She contacted Chris asking what he had eaten for dinner. He told her salmon and beer. On the Lazy Dog website, she found that the meal cost less than $30 and was immediately suspicious. On Sunday, the next day, Shanann had almost finished the Hold Me Tight ebook and had given much thought on how she could improve the marriage. "I can sometimes be bitchy," she texted one of her friends. "I have control issues. He said the other night he wishes I'd just let him hang up a picture." Shanann attempted to see things from Chris's perspective, noting he never complained about the way she treated him. "He never calls me out. He never fights me, just goes with the flow. We know I like things done a certain way, but I never thought about how that may make him feel as a man. I don't even know if this is what's bothering him. He doesn't communicate." Arriving back in Colorado, Shanann and Nichol Atkinson finally boarded the plane on Monday at 12:45 a.m. Shanann said she's not going to wake Chris up. She's just going to put her arms around him and feel close. "We really don't know what happened afterwards because Chris has given multiple accounts. Chris said he would take it to the grave what actually happened, but this is likely a stripped-down version of the events." Chris claimed what happened after Shanann got home and went to bed was entirely spontaneous. It was as if a bomb went off in his head and he was powerless to stop it. "She started rubbing her hand on me, and we ended up having sex. I felt totally strange. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I'd become. It didn't feel right with me." After they finished, they went to sleep. Later, Chris woke up, put on his work clothes, and went into the kitchen to prepare his lunch. Then he came back into the bedroom and woke up Shanann, saying they had to talk. "I told her I don't feel like this is going to work. Can we cancel the trip to Aspen?" This was a vacation Shanann booked so they could work on their marriage. Shanann told him that she knew there was someone else and started crying. She said she was leaving with Bella and Celeste and he would never see them again. He told her he didn't love her anymore. As he put his hands around her neck and began to strangle her, he stared deep into her eyes and watched them turn bloodshot as tears of mascara rolled down her face. Shanann never struggled during the 2 to 4 minutes it took for her to die. There's some speculation that he drugged her with oxycodone first, but there's no mention of it in the autopsy. From hearing a commotion, Bella comes walking into the room. Seeing her mother lying dead on the bed, she asked, "What's wrong with Mommy?" "Mommy don't feel so good." Watts wrapped Shanann's body with the top sheet and attempted to carry her downstairs, but she was too heavy and he lost his grip. He dragged her body down the stairs and into the garage with Bella trailing him. He backed his Anadarko truck into the driveway and put his wife's lifeless body in 2 black garbage bags, one over her head and the other over her feet. He put her in the back of the truck on the floor behind the driver's seat. He collected his daughters and put them on the bench seat in the back, their feet inches above their mother. Bella kept asking if Mommy was okay, and Watts reassured her she would be fine. During the drive, Bella said, "Daddy, it smells." Watts didn't know what she was referring to, whether it was inside or outside the truck. Watts went to the work site, where he was expected to be at the oil center, Survey 319. Telling Bella and Celeste he would be back soon, he lifted Shanann's body out. "What are you doing with Mommy?" asked Bella. Watts didn't answer. Watts dragged his wife's body into some scrubland. He walked back to the truck and got in the back. He used CeCe's favorite blanket and smothered her, pushing her against the back seat of the truck. Then he pulled his daughter's body out of the truck and walked up the stairs of two twin 20-foot-high oil tanks. In the one on the right, he opened the thief hatch and lowered Celeste feet first through the 8-inch opening. He dropped her inside, hearing her body make a splashing sound as it hit the crude oil below. He returned for Bella. Bella said, "What happened to CeCe? Is the same thing going to happen to me as CeCe?" Watts doesn't remember what he told her, if he said anything at all. He grabbed the blanket. "Daddy, no! Daddy, no!" screamed Bella as his hand went over her mouth. Bella fought for her life, biting her tongue multiple times before she succumbed. He carried her up the stairs and walked across the catwalk to the other oil tank, but Bella was too big to fit through the 8-inch opening, so he had to shove her through, scraping her body in the process. Watts walked back to his wife's body. He dug a 27-inch hole, and pulling up the sheet that wrapped her, Shanann's body rolled into the grave. He noticed she had given birth. This may account for what Bella smelled in the car. Shanann landed face down in the dirt, her knees pulled up in a fetal position with her left arm toward her head. He covered her with the excavated soil. After this got out and the police were on the case, Chris wanted to go back to work the very next day, and Anadarko told him to take some time off. Chris ultimately confessed when he failed the lie detector test. Most people lying scored a -4. Chris scored a -18. He was a bad liar. There were 3 questions he was asked. Did you cause Shanann's disappearance? When was the last time you saw her? Do you know where she is now? After Chris pointed out on a map where everyone was, Shanann's body was relatively easy to find and dig up, but to recover the children, they had to drain the tanks consisting of crude oil and water, diverting the fluids in a holding tank, and then pull the kids out from underneath. The girls were dressed in pink tops, and CeCe was in diapers.
So the recovery process began. The 2 400-barrel tanks had to first be manually drained into holding tanks, with the extracted oil run through metal screens to filter any possible evidence. Once each tank was emptied, the welding crew began removing the bolts from the door that was located at the base of each tank. They were then allowed to step to the side, while a trooper and CBI agent wearing fully protective hazardous material gear finished removing the door, then entered the pitch-black tank. They could only remain in the tank for a few minutes at a time because of the toxic fumes, and had to undergo an extensive decontamination process afterward. In the east tank, they located the body of CeCe, still in her nightgown and a diaper and covered in crude oil. Having been in the tank for 3 days at that point, her body was badly decomposed, making it problematic to handle and transport her out of the tank. Once CeCe was removed, they performed the same process to retrieve Bella, still in her pink pajama top. She was larger than CeCe, resulting in a 5-inch or 13 centimeter scratch on her bottom from being forced through the tiny opening.
Bella and CeCe were combustible after being drenched in the oil for 4 days. Separately, they had to be put in a special coffin, sealed so that gases wouldn't leak out or they would explode. Anadarko, the place Chris worked, provided detectives with evidence of Watts having an affair with Kessinger after examining company emails. Tipped off, Kessinger marched herself down to the police department like a civic-minded citizen to offer what she knew. Although her testimony was riddled with a cavalcade of lies, she still provided pertinent information for the police to figure out what this was all about. Amateur sleuths have found many contradictions in her statements, which still go on to this day. Kessinger came forward to the police very much like Amber Fry in the Lacey Peterson murder. Not only was Amber Fry not implicated, but she was in a unique position to profit off writing a book. Kessinger Googled what Fry's net worth was and whether people hated her. so she immediately changed sides from allying with Chris to opposing him.
Probably would have just left, because at that point it's not fair. It wasn't fair to me in the first place. It wasn't fair to her in the first place. It wasn't fair to any of us in the first place. You know, it wasn't fair to his family for him to have an affair. It wasn't fair to me to have him lie to me and make me think that everything is going to plan. And still to this day, I don't even know what's a lie and what's not. I don't even know if they were filing for divorce. I don't know if they were putting the house up. I don't even know.
Her lies put her on a foundation of quicksand, because there are records of her Google searches, phone logs, recovered deleted information off her cell, surveillance footage that not only prove she's a liar, but could incriminate her as well. It didn't take long for her to discover she was in over her head, so then she insisted her father, acting like a lawyer, attend to any future interrogations. After a few days of extended leave at Anadarko, Kessinger was fired. Now this segment has her talking about being fired. She claims she only started working there 4 months ago. Her boss informed her job was safe, don't worry about it, and the very next day they fired her.
Kind of disappointing, because they told me, I informed them of the situation, and then they contacted me a day later and they said, oh, you're good, don't worry about it. And then they contacted me the day after and pretty much just let me go. And it's well, it is what it is. I've only been working with them for 4 months.
Since the date of the interview is August 16th, and she claims she had been working there for 4 months, that means she started working there around April 2018. The problem is, how could she be Googling Chris Watts' name way back in August 2017 when they would not have even met yet? Simply put, she could have lied as to when she was hired. As stated earlier, she was transferred to Anadarko in 2017. Anadarko referred to her status as a contract employee. While we're at it, let's take a look at her chart. I get Gemini rising. Well, that accounts for the lies, the droning on, and the scoundrel desire to be Amber Fry 2.0. So when did Chris and Nichol start noticing each other? It's probably when Chris started losing weight back in 2017. He started at 235 pounds. The Thrive patch is credited for Chris losing a lot of weight, but actually he started on the Thrive patch back in 2016 when Shanann got into Lavelle. That entire year of 2016, there is no mention that he lost weight. It wasn't until early spring the next year, 2017, a friend noticed Chris had dropped 40 pounds. He would continue to lose weight through 2018 until he was quite svelte. Not only that, he became fanatical about his daily 5-mile runs and weightlifting and bench pressing workouts. He also started eating better. As he lost weight, Shanann would brag with pictures of him in muscle shirts on Facebook. Nichol tells investigators that one day after Shanann's disappearance, she advises Chris what to do with Shanann's wedding ring. Her response is to pawn it.
I can't even believe I have to say this. She left her wedding ring here, and I said something along the lines of, does that mean you two are done? And he was like, oh my God. He said, how much do you think it's worth? And I remember hearing him say that and being like, what the fuck? And I remember thinking to myself, I don't even know how to respond to this. And so I was like, I don't know, pawn it, man. And I was just I pawn jewelry all the time. I pawn jewelry a few times. I was like, it's not worth shit, though. And I was like, so I don't know if you really want to do that. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to get it appraised. It's a nice rock.
So telling Chris to pawn it one day after his wife's disappearance implies she knows Shanann is never coming back. So here we have Nichol incriminating herself.
And people aren't going to understand that. They're going to say, oh, you're the woman that had an affair with this man who took out his whole family. And I take a step back and it's just I didn't No! Like, he's so disgusting. I'm so ashamed of him and everything, and I just... Oh, those little girls. They're so little. They're so little.
Oh, shut up, Nichol. You have to put her on a lie detector every time she opens up her mouth. And wasn't it only a few weeks ago they were trying to abort Shanann's fetus with oxycodone? There's your silvery-tongued Gemini rising. They slip in and out of lies with ease, as if it's part of the conversation. Kessinger said her name would be slandered, and she wouldn't be able to go out in public for a couple of years, and people would point fingers at her. She then inquired how to change her name. Police discussed entering her into a witness protection program and moving to another state with a new identity. Chris said that Shanann had killed the kids, and so he killed her. That idea was put in his head from the interrogators, who often give the suspect some kind of out in order to open them up into confessing. Probably the only people who believed this story were his parents. Then in a plea deal, he confessed to killing the children too. His parents said he was railroaded into a confession, and his mother asked, why would he take the blame for something he didn't do? He said, "Mom, this was my decision." The reason Chris agreed to the plea deal was to take the death penalty off the table. This would also stop the investigation to keep Kessinger out of it, because they were closing in on her fast. So while Chris was protecting her, she was throwing him under the bus. So Chris was given life without parole. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences plus 84 years. And his parents still believed he was innocent of murdering the children. Over time, they saw the light, although it was very hard on them to accept their mild-mannered, obedient son could do something like that.